Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. We're waking up with watches, and everything you see is for sale. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com to buy, sell, or trade. We are always looking to build inventory, and you may be looking to trade up to a new flame, or you may be looking to sell outright. In either case, we give great value. We make the transaction seamless, no upper limit on value paid. We pay cash, we pay fast, we make the whole process seamless. So reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com to buy, sell, or trade. Today, boy, do I have a piece for you. The Omega Silver Snoopy 3. Well, officially, this is the Silver Snoopy Award 50th anniversary piece from 2020. The third in the Silver Snoopy series that started in 2003. It is the most extravagant. A lot going on here. It's fundamentally a moonwatch with the new Moonwatch caliber, coaxial chronometer, but in good taste, all of the advertising about the caliber has been left off the dial. Instead, what we have is a tone-on-tone silver blue panda. The dial, as you can see, we'll do a little bit of a wind here, get the chronograph running, but the dial is actually made of solid sterling silver, just like the Silver Snoopy Award given by the astronauts to exceptional NASA employees and contractors. And of course, at one point, due to its service recovering the crippled Apollo XIII command module, Omega received the Silver Snoopy, and the award was handed over to Omega by the astronauts on October 5th, 1970. Yes, it is a coaxial master chronometer. The new, but still Lemania-based 3861 is free-sprung with an anti-magnetic silicon hairspring, a coaxial escapement, a master chronometer certification. You can see how the case back is animated with the command module flying around the dark side of the moon. We have the Earth rise over the edge of the moon. The Earth is constantly spinning because it is on the same pinion axis as the constant seconds display. The watch features sapphire crystal over the dial because this is a Lux Speedmaster. You can see it is well loomed, and it features a tachymeter in ceramic. The case in stainless steel, still 42 millimeters. Inside, we've got that new tech Omega Moonwatch caliber. We're going to zoom out a little bit here, take a look at it on my wrist. If you're a Snoopy fan, if you're a Peanuts fan, if you're a watch collector, if you're a fan of spaceflight or aerospace, even if you're just an armchair aviator, this is a great watch to own. And while it is not a limited edition like the first two Silver Snoopies, it is very much limited production. So you're not going to see a lot of them, and eventually production will be discontinued with the market left unsatisfied and these watches retaining real value. It's a manual wind 50-hour power reserve. It's tank tough, and it is related to the Moonwatch that is still currently used by Omega and NASA for space duties. A real good-looking piece. You can see the upscale dial features the applique indices. We'll get a little bit closer via zoom here. You can see that it is a much more involved, first, precious metal, and second, elaborately applique adorned dial. We have the image of Snoopy drawn by Charles Schultz specifically for the Silver Snoopy Award. So that was a custom drawing for NASA for the award expressly. Now let's jump from one blue watch to another. We saw Omega's take on a blue chronograph. How about Rolex? Well, that's exactly what we have right here. This is from the legendary quartet of the Rolex Daytona Beach collection. Now you can see it is a white gold 116519, very early in-house caliber Daytona, 40 millimeters white gold, 100 meters water resistant, with a sensational gloss blue lacquer dial and applique white gold Roman numerals. Inside, with a 3-day power reserve, we have the Rolex manufactured caliber 4130, vertical clutch, column wheel, chronometer certified, shock resistant, anti-magnetic. Again, 72 hours of reserve demarche, automatic winding, and the standard for modern-day chronograph calibers. Now, what's special here is that it is such a tropically themed watch with the combination of white gold and a rare appearance of a Rolex factory lizard leather strap. We'll throw it on my wrist. You can see the strap-clad Daytonas have a very different look than the bracelet watches. So this one's more geared towards leisure on Daytona Beach than speed on the high banks of Daytona International Speedway. Although make no mistake, this is still very much from the family of chronographs that represent the world's most coveted motorsports trophy. If you win the Daytona 24, you get this watch. And F1 drivers have been known to moonlight in U.S. sports car racing just to qualify to win this timepiece, and this is a more luxe version with which to luxuriate on the beach after the race. Jumping back to Omega, here's a very different take on a moonwatch. This came out in 2018, and I thought this is either going to be a unqualified success or a famous failure, because the Omega Speedmaster moonwatch Apollo 8 is so uncompromising and in your face. The theme runs from side to side, and they went all the way, evacuating the dial and laser ablating the base plate and bridges of the movement to the point where you actually look like you're staring at the dark side of the moon. This is a no-holds-barred art design department gone wild. This is not something that the engineers planned. Someone had a pen and paper and won almost every battle with the accountants and the engineers in designing this watch. You can see Apollo 8, December 1968, which traveled around the dark side of the moon, temporarily losing radio contact with mission control. You can see caliber 1869 is based on the moonwatch display caseback for caliber 1863. So manual wind, 6 beats per second, a combination of a cam and a lateral clutch with a 48-hour power reserve, and it's in the dark side of the moon case, which means it is 44.25 millimeters in diameter, but almost completely impervious to scratches and feather light because it's made almost entirely of sapphire and ceramic. You could see the crown as well as the entire bezel and the interior of the watch fully loomed. And because these are only about 50 millimeters lug to lug and they are so light, they wear smaller than most 44+ millimeter watches ever would. Thrown it on my wrist, you can see it wears really nicely, comfortable, and just short of my wrist on either side. So I can recommend this watch for a wrist as small as 15 centimeters circumference because it's mechanical wind, or I should say manual wind of a mechanical movement. Compared to the automatic versions of the same watch, like the gray side, the white side, and the dark side, this is a lot thinner than those because it has a manual wind caliber instead of some version of the 9300 or 9900 automatic. And because this is an integrated chronograph as opposed to the 9300 and 9900, which are modular chronographs. So this is a watch that wears a lot smaller than you might think. Omega goes all the way, giving you a full ceramic pin and buckle. This is where a lot of companies like Hublot, for example, would give you, say, DLC titanium because they couldn't make this part economically. Well, Omega and Swatch Group don't have that problem. They're the source for the ceramic, so they can make a super durable ceramic pin and buckle to match with a lovely compound rubber and leather strap featuring contrasting stitch and perforations. A really cool watch. But if you want to go big with your sports watch, well, this is about as big as it gets. Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore Diver. Now, this model, which is the 15720 ST, was redesigned for 2021. You can see we have a ceramic shoulder on both the crown used for adjusting the unidirectional rotating dive bezel, and then a ceramic shoulder on the crown that is used for winding and setting. The watch is 42 millimeters in hand-finished stainless steel. We'll get a little bit closer, take a look at some of this faceting. This is a big part of what you pay for when you buy a Royal Oak Offshore. The combination of the satin and the polish and the precision with which the finishing is applied. You can see even the shoulder for the crown features a combination of polish and satin. We have a bezel gasket that is blue to match the dial, which is the Mega Tapisserie, or the large hobnail. Let's do a quick loom shot. The watch is 300 meters water resistant, and being a diver, it is very well loomed. No problems there. Underneath the display case back, we have Audemars Piguet's caliber 4302 is a automatic winder that has a 70-hour power reserve, stop seconds, and a quick set. It has a full balance bridge and a free-sprung Gyromax style balance. And unlike the previous 26mm 3120 movement, this one's over 30 millimeters and it's designed to fill a larger case back. You can also see that we now have a push-button quick-release system, so it's easy to remove the strap and, if you wish, fit something else, like a bracelet or a leather strap to dress up. Now, we also have a buckle that includes a quick release built in, so you can remove the buckle from the strap without tools, and you can remove the strap from the case without tools. Throw it on the wrist. There's no doubting it's a big watch. It's got a lot of wrist presence. I want to warn you that the watch is really more like a 43 or a 44 in terms of how it wears, but it is a lot thinner than a Royal Oak Offshore chronograph, especially the modular movements. So this is a watch that you could wear on a wrist as small as, I'm going to say, 15 centimeters circumference. Any smaller than that, you're probably going to want a smaller Royal Oak, but a good piece with good fit and wonderful history behind it. The Royal Oak Offshore is the original oversized modern-day sports watch. Correct. That is the first modern-day oversized luxury sports watch, as it did hit the market the same day, or the same year, I should say, as the Panerai Luminors did back in 1993. Okay, so now we need a diversion from giant dress watch or giant sports watches. I'm all over the place today, guys. Fortunately, I've got dress watches right here. We've got the FPJORN OCTA Divine, 38mm, rose gold. This one is interesting because it features a caseback stamped 05, and very few watches have that, as the case year of manufacture stamping stopped in 2005, so very few watches actually say 05 on their caseback. That was a mid-year change made in the case supply, and so if you see a watch stamped 05, that was only a partial model year for these year stamped cases, so they're rare on that basis alone. We have a solid gold movement where the rotor is 22 karat, the bridges and plates are 18 karat. You can see the balance is free sprung, adjusted in 5 positions. This is the Octa Caliber 1300, and it has a 5-day chronometric power reserve, though in fact it'll run for 160 hours before it actually stops. You can see we have both Swiss and French hallmarks here, as well as the maker's mark of Eleanor, because these cases were made by Eleanor outside Paris, a French supplier that had been a partner of FPJORN since his pocket watch manufacturing days in the 80s. And so this tradition of the Eleanor-made case was discontinued midway through 2008. You can see that the dial is made of white gold and media blasted. And then we have this outer bezel that features sub-seconds as well as hours. We have a quick set system for the double-digit date as well as the moon phase. You can see that chronometric power reserve indicator up to 120 hours. And then the watch, 38mm in rose gold, feels surprisingly heavy. Being a gold watch with a solid gold dial and a solid gold movement, eyes closed, you'd swear it's bigger than 38mm, but it's wonderfully sized, and it's only about 44.5mm from lug to lug, making it an ideal choice for a woman or a smaller person with a wrist as small as 13 centimeters circumference. Now, in 2015, FPJORN launched the Octa C Perpetual, and in 2020 he launched this variant with a simplified dial. The original 2015 model featured a sort of chromed or polished steel football that surrounded the center dial. Well, here that's gone. It allows the dial to breathe a little bit better. We have a blue mauve dial with applique white gold polished numerals and white gold hands and calendar apertures to match. The watch is designed so that everything can be set using the crown or the pusher adjuster built into the case, so you don't need tools to be able to set this perpetual calendar. See how I can adjust the day and then I can also adjust the date using the quick set system? Well, if I need to adjust the month, there's a little trigger hiding underneath the lug up at 130, and I can use that to adjust the month. So no issues there. Again, 120-hour chronometric, 160-hour absolute power reserve. This one is 40mm in platinum, so you really do feel that mass. A solid gold movement. You can see now we're dealing with the caliber 1303 with all of the changes that have occurred over the years, including the use of gold bridges and plates, plus a unidirectional winding system after mid-2007. Throw the watch on the wrist, it wears nicely. Lug to lug, it's 48mm, and it's nice and thin. So you can see the watch fits well on a 16cm circumference wrist, and I think it's suitable for a wrist as small as 14cm circumference. And being a perpetual calendar, you won't have to touch it until it goes off to service. When it comes back, it'll probably be set from the service center, so you may not have to set this watch if you wear it every day and service it regularly, until the year 2100, when the perpetual calendar will need to be corrected. Speaking of perpetual, we have some fascinating perpetual options here. Starting with the Vacheron Constantin Overseas Perpetual Calendar. 41mm in diameter, it's only 8.5mm thick. It features a quick release system for the bracelet, which you'll note is fully sizable with every link removable. Take a quick look at the interior. We have 2 sleeved adjustments built into the clasp, 1.5mm on each side, and we also have immaculate manual finishing. If you take a look at some of the interior contours of this bracelet, the execution is as impressive as anything from Patek, Lange, or Audemars Piguet. Now, the watch comes with 2 straps. One is leather, one is rubber. We have a perpetual calendar, and then on the reverse side, a movement that AP has been phasing out, and sadly so. Vacheron calls this the 1120. It was originally the JLC 920, launched in 1967, designed by JLC at the behest of Patek, Vacheron, and AP. It was only ever used by those three brands, never by JLC or any of its other customers. Vacheron's version features the Geneva hallmark, which you can see both on the balance cock as well as the case, as since mid-2012, Geneva hallmark has been a full watch standard. The movement is beautifully finished with the bevels as bright as the sun in the morning. We have lovely Côte de Genève rotor with quadruple finish, 22 karat gold, not 21, not 18, God help us, not rose gold, coated tungsten, 22 carats. There's an anti-magnetic iron ring around the movement to give it 25,000 ampere per meter anti-magnetism and 50 meter water resistance. It's a free-sprung gyromax style balance for precision of adjustment, has a 40-hour automatic winding power reserve and a vintagey 19,800 vibration per hour beat rate. It has a beryllium ring that runs all the way around and pivots on 4 ruby bearings that sit inside the base plate. So this ultra-thin movement with a base only 2.4 millimeters thick will never suffer the collision of the rotor with the bridges or the underlying rotor with the base plate. And turn it all over, you can see a lovely dial which is loomed, and we're going to take a look at that loom now. It's actually quite well loomed for a dress watch. A perpetual calendar, as you can see, it need not be corrected until the year 2100, and the watch does come with a rubber strap as well as a leather strap, which you can swap out using the quick release system built into the bracelet. Two different takes on perpetual right here. From H. Moser C, I have on the left the 2019 50-piece Moser Endeavor Concept Perpetual Moon Aventurine, and it features a moon phase with an adjustment interval of once every 1,027 years. You can see that this watch, which is stainless steel, is 42 millimeters in diameter and beautifully contoured in the way that is characteristic of the Endeavor cases, a wonderfully fluid shape that can only be achieved by first machining and then hand finishing cases. No stamping here. We have an aventurine glass dial and a moon phase designed for Moser by Andreas Streller, so it only needs to be touched once every 1,027 years. We have a AM/PM indicator with the little stub hand at center. Turn it all over, and the movement is a Moser manufacture caliber with 7 days of, 7 days of rated power reserve. I'm going to stipulate that it'll run for almost 9 before it actually stops. There's a case-back power reserve indicator, so with the moon phase, this watch is actually a double complication. The entire assortment, the balance, the hairspring, and the 14-karat gold low-friction escapement pull out as a unit so the watch can be rapidly serviced and returned to you from the regional Moser service centers where pre-serviced modules are ready to go. It beats away at an aesthetically pleasing 18,000 vibrations per hour. It is free-sprung with a full balance bridge for shock tolerance, and it uses Moser's own in-house escapement, balance, and overcoil hairspring. Moser makes these in-house, which is deeply impressive. We'll throw this watch on the wrist so you can get a sense of it. It's a large watch, but it's a wearable watch. You can see the tight downward curve of the lugs mitigating against fit issues. I'd say a wrist my size could wear it. My size or larger, so 16 centimeters circumference or larger. Now, I have a very different type of watch right here. This is also a 42, but a much more compact 42. This one is a much more limited 20 pieces in white gold, launched in 2021. This is the Moser Heritage Perpetual. So the Heritage line with a design evocative of a pocket watch converted into a wristwatch, not explicitly pilot watches. They're based on Moser timepieces with welded lugs and rotund pocket watch-like cases that were made in the 20s and 30s. The watch has a midnight blue fired enamel dial, which is made on a gold dial base, and so it's actually a vignette style with a bright center and a darker edge. So not only is it fired enamel, fired up to 20 times at 800 degrees centigrade, but it's also a fumé fade or smoked from the center out. We have these lovely radially arrayed Roman numerals and vintage style hands. There's a power reserve indicator at 9 o'clock. There is a large date with a bidirectional quickset over at 3 o'clock, and you can see there is a little month indicator coaxial with the hands. So 12 hours, 12 months. That's how the perpetual calendar system works. We will turn just to make sure we're not in the date change danger zone, though my understanding is you can't break this watch even if you do change the date at midnight. You can see that the perpetual calendar system is bidirectional, so you can turn it in either direction, and it uses oversized overlapping discs. You can really see that when we get down to 1. See how there's an overlap between 2 large discs? That's how we can get a huge date display without one single enormous date wheel. And you can see how that little hour indicator, well, the hour/month indicator, jumps here between December and January. And yes, I realize there aren't 28 days in January. That's just the way the watch works. When you're quick setting it from month to month, it knows the score as a perpetual calendar when it is jumping itself automatically. You can see that Moser also engraved and then enameled the case flank with a Flinke technique using reductive engine turning and then creating fired enamel over those patterns. On the reverse side, again, we have that same basic caliber 800, the same as before, albeit now with a leap year phase indicator, as Andreas Streller, who also designed this system for Moser, reasoned that you didn't need to consult that too often, so we put a pusher adjuster on the side and the display on the back. Twin barrels, lots of power reserve, and a rare feature on a Moser watch, a full deployant clasp. You're going to like to have this. Gives you a little bit more security against accidentally dropping your watch. The clasp, like the watch, is white gold. This fits a lot smaller than the Perpetual Moon you just saw. I could actually recommend this for 14 centimeter circumference wrists. It's quite thin, and because of the wire style lugs, it wears smaller. A really special piece. Engraving, enameling, white gold, a perpetual calendar, and a spectacularly long power reserve. I don't have much to say about this one other than that it is one of the most desirable Patek Philippe watches of the modern era. This one is still factory sealed, so I'm going to let you have the privilege of opening it if you buy it. This, of course, is the 5961A that debuted in 2014 and was discontinued for 2018, so they made this watch for 4 years. It is the sportier version of the 5960 flyback chronograph power reserve annual calendar, 40.5 millimeters in diameter. You can see it features a mono counter with coaxial chronograph hours and minutes, an aperture-style annual calendar requiring only 1 correction per year. And then it has a flyback chronograph that you can reset and restart without first stopping. There's also a little power reserve indicator, and then there's a little aperture down at 6 o'clock that warns you of nighttime so you know when not to use the calendar correctors. This watch is beautifully wearable, hugely desired, increasingly collectible, and highly sought. It's also factory sealed, so check me out, Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com, if you want to be the one to rip open this package. All right, from the Netherlands comes the Grunefeld 1941 Principia 39.5 millimeters in diameter. It was launched in late 2018 for the 2019 model year. It was Tim and Bart Grunefeld's first automatic watch. This one features a turquoise dial with remarkable fired blue steel hands, alpha style, and faceted and black polished hour indices. You can see just how sophisticated the contouring and assembly of this 1941 case is. And while the brothers like their larger cases, they launched this one, 39.5, specifically to satisfy popular demand. Now, the case is in stainless steel, so you're paying for horology, not precious metal. And you can see that it features a lovely movement with a skeletonized full balance bridge and a free-sprung balance. All of the bridges are made of steel, making them extraordinarily tough to finish. Despite that, they have a channeling along their edges, mirrored anglage on their outer faces, and then internally they're media blasted. You can also see that the shape of the bridges matches the bell gable profile of the roofs of traditional Dutch houses, and from the barrel, which is solarized, all the way down to the escapement, we have golden chaton fixing the pivot jewels, a nod to the pocket watch era. All this adjusted in an uncompromising 6 positions, one more than a standard chronometer, automatic winding with a 56-hour power reserve. On my wrist, the watch, which is just over 47 millimeters lug to lug, wears beautifully. It features a buffalo leather strap, which is blue on the top, orange on the bottom, Dutch orange naturally, and you can see it wears really nicely. An alternative at a lower price with in my opinion, higher quality than something like a FPJORN Chronomètre Bleu. This is a more available and, again, in my opinion, better priced alternative to something like a Kari Voutilainen 28 or a Languntaina Frederick III. And this is a watch that you really can get at a very reasonable price pre-owned relative to a brand that has closed its order books. These are still a great buy. With finishing second to none, you can really see the Grunefeld brothers, Audemars Piguet, Reynaud, Papi pedigree shining through in the finish of this movement and the execution of this watch. Now I'm going to share something with you that's even more underrated, legitimately underrated. The Breguet Classique Chronograph 5247 BR. Fired enamel dial featuring a tachymeter, solid gold, 39mm case, cold rolled coining, hand finish, hand welded and micro finished lugs. All of that with a Lamagna movement base that's been converted to a free sprung architecture, immaculate hand finish, and as you could see, a Breguet overcoil hairspring with a recessed bolt aerodynamic free-sprung balance. It has a column wheel lateral clutch style architecture based on the vintage Lamagna 2310 that, as the Omega 321 went to the moon and as the Patek 2770 became a legend. This watch is the best of everything in a 39mm package, handcrafted fired enamel dial, handcrafted rose gold case, hand-finished caliber 533 Lamagna-based chronograph movement inside. As good as it gets, no, as great as it gets. This watch exhausts the superlatives. This is an incredible alternative to something like a Patek Philippe 5070, arguably with even greater exclusivity and craft art in the enamel dial, as you will be hard-pressed to find a 5070 with a Grunefeld dial. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details of any watch you saw in today's program.